really.
Right. So let's fast forward time then
Mm-hmm.
to a couple of months in at this point. So we're looking probably between like 10 to 15 sessions in, let's say. Because that's a good maybe 3 or 4 months.
Yeah. If you play on something, if you play regularly, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I can speak for experience in one of the campaigns I've been part of, vis-a-vis without these two guys. The reason I ended up walking away from it was just that it felt very much like there were a couple of players and characters that became a narrative focal point. And it wasn't because necessarily that it was their arc of the story or anything like that. Everything seemed to end up going back to them, or highly involving these particular ones. And in my experience, it wasn't because they were the best RPers or anything like that. It was just that maybe the DM favoured their characters more because they were interesting characters to play, or they were class types that the DM liked running stuff for. I will say this when they were a paladin and a cleric off the top of my head, we both were. So maybe the DM just liked having those kind of classes involved because the rest of us were kind of quirky builds. But we don't. It was everyone had played a bit and enough to know what they were building. So I was running a monk cleric. So I was doing a Tempest cleric with a Kensei monk. So I had a bit of a weird sort of thing like that. And I think it put him off using my character too much because I will admit this, that cleric build became very powerful very quickly. Like, even I knew it could do a lot of damage, but it caught me out how quick.
Right.
And I think it put him off using us, isn't it?
Just make monsters more powerful.
Yeah.
Kill Carl's character a few times. You know?
Well, so favoritism can start to creep in after a couple of months.
Say again?
Favoritism can start to creep in.
It felt like that a little bit to me. Obviously, this is just my interpretation. I didn't get a chance to pass DM because I decided that it wasn't going. My expectations were not being met, so I walked away. But that was my experience, and it's not. It's that I've heard from other people who played that have had similar experiences as well. That one player or two players end up becoming a narrative focal point, and everything shifts around their story rather than anything else.
Right. Okay. So it can get unbalanced. So favoritism and unbalance in how much time people have to actually shine.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think as well. It depends what kind of system you got, and it kind of speaks to sort of Carl's character, where it got very powerful, very quick. You've got a lot of choice in them. There's ways to make glass cannons and stuff like that. Things that can get very powerful, and things that can get very unwieldy. When you've got such a comprehensive system that likes to put everything in the kitchen sink in, then it can be, I imagine, very difficult for a DM to actually work it, and it becomes more trouble than it's worth. So rather than the players leaving, the game may just collapse at that point. And everyone has to kind of abandon ship.
Well, a player may make a poor choice in their character.
Also,
and then they're stuck with it.
And then they become the anti-glass cannon. They become a chocolate teapot. And they're just useless and not fun to play.
I mean, throwing back to one of our older campaigns, when the one you were DMing for us years ago, my great weapon fighter. By the end of that campaign, I was very bored of that character. And not because it wasn't that you did wrong. It was just that D&D edition favoured ranged combat and dex builds specifically. So
I would say the same for that.
Both me and
Matt Ironface.
You guys just basically had to be shields.
We were basically just meat shields for the for the ranger, just to eviscerate everything.
Pretty much.
We could never match the damage output.
Well, that was my first experience with D&D, and I think I can't remember how I built Ironface, but I'm pretty sure I built him completely wrong.
The fourth edition was not again, kind of like third. It was very complicated with how classes work. So
and by that time, you had a lot of expansions, and I was pretty fast and loose with homebrew. If it was dope, it was in.
Yeah, we overused the rule of cool, I think.
Well, and I think I had to at points as well. Because the ranger and sort of my support character for you guys, they could like kill it, but your characters weren't like they weren't very potent. The wizard wasn't very potent. Well, actually, the wizard wasn't very potent at the start, so I had to find ways.
Yeah.
Well, they kind of like the players found ways to make them more potent. I was like,
we
like I remember it'd be like clouded daggers, and then
so
that was you guys working together, wasn't it? He'd make clouded daggers and you'd hit it.
Yeah.
Yeah, we hit the daggers towards stuff.
I was like, that works.
Yeah, we kind of ruled up like, well, if it's kind of dagger, then means an actual dagger, right? So there's something to hit there.
Yeah.
The one that might just swing his massive warhammer through the daggers and just basically golf club it.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, okay. I remember as well, we used to use lightning bolt to charge Matt up.
Yeah.
Because he was basically.
Yeah. It had to require.
It was a very specific goal.
You guys to be very crafty in how you did it, and then me to try and balance it on the fly. And come up with a rule as well. Yeah, so systems, get it right. Stop putting too much shit in your systems. Because people can get it wrong because they don't know the systems that you're making. Don't make it too difficult to make effective, fun, exciting players to make.
I mean, again, talking about
get good.
The
I said it.
Cleric monk build that I had was level 6, and I had multiple spells that could hit multiple targets for like D10 damage.
Nice.
And one of the cleric features is that it's Channel Divinity, the Tempest.
Channel Divinity is so good.
Yeah, but the cleric, the Tempest one is even more dangerous because you get a lot of thunder and lightning based spells.
Right.
For example, I had Thunderclap, which hits everything within a certain area for a dice. It's Channel Divinity basically means it does maximum damage with that damage type. And doesn't have to roll. So there was a fight. I remember there was a fight I walked into. I basically said to everyone, "Stay away this far away from me, and I will draw everything in." Everything ran towards me. I immediately did Thunderclap and used my Channel Divinity, and I hit everything for like 6, like a lot of damage. It was silly. It was like 16 damage each target.
So your DM ran towards you, knowing full well what was going to happen.
He hadn't seen the damage output that he could do at this point.
Oh, okay.
This was the first. This was the first fight I fought because I'd only just hit level 4,
right?
So I'd only just sort of got the specialities, and so he hadn't seen that. So that was the first time I was cleric Tempest, and I dropped that and half health. I think everything in the fight on one move.
Yeah,
everything's bloody.
Yeah, he very quickly realised like, oh, you are scary very quickly.
Yeah, and what I did there, I realised I victim blamed the DM. This happens very often. This happens very often, especially in D&D. You know, you're a DM. They level up and they do really cool things, and the first encounter, chances are they're going to fucking ruin you. They will ruin you in that first one. If they get a lot of nice, tasty things, they're going to fucking batter you.
It's because as a DM, you don't know how to balance it until you've seen it.
Yeah, but then
you got to write off that first encounter. Right?
Yeah, it's a tester.
And then the DM has a very difficult job of balancing it correctly. Because if you balance it too much, then they're like, well, I've just fucking wasted a level.
Yeah,
I've made, like, so you make your fucking Thor monk, right? Then all the rest of them are like made of stone. Yeah. Right? Like, well, now I'm a silly man.
Yeah.
I'm a silly monk that punches stones. And okay, so then you've got there's again more work to do.
Well, we're getting into the realm now. I think at this kind of time is the realm where the DM might be like,
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Not just the players.
Balance out those kinds of things.
3 or 4 months in, the characters are probably leveled up. Depending on how you're doing it. If you're doing it by the book, it's obviously XP. Most DMs I've played with do milestone leveling instead.
I do both.
I find it flows more naturally for milestone.
Yeah.
Personally, because you can you can balance bigger chunks because you can control your level up.
It just makes it flow better, so you don't have to ask how much XP
you're getting. And also,
no one will level up.
Invariably, someone will do something on their own and get extra XP, and so they'll end up being a level above everybody else for a quick bit of time. And anyway,
people are going to chase it if it's there.
But yeah, it becomes a point when D&D, I find, has a very weird character progression arc. Like everyone seems to level 1, level 2, nothing because you barely get anything. Level 3, you get a bit of a jump because it's your archetype. Level 4, depending on which archetype you've taken or which class you are,
or how your stats go.
Exactly, you need to get a very minimal jump or a very sudden explosive leap up that chart. And then I find
5 is it?
5 and 6 again jump because if you're the right class, fighters get an additional attack earlier than everybody else. So
fighter, ranger, paladin,
exactly. So you get
monk get an extra one. I'm pretty sure
from one of these guys.
I think
it's
most characters, most defensive melee classes get an extra attack around level 5.
Yeah,
all the cantrips charge up,
exactly.
so you get an extra dice.
So suddenly you're adding damage for no additional outlay for the character. And
people forget the action economy as well.
That's the thing.
I forget that as a DM sometimes. The action economy.
DMs genuinely do because monsters don't have action economy in the same way that players do. Monsters have these set attacks. That's it. Whereas a player has a lot more choice, and depending on how you build it, if you know what you're doing and you've played with a few classes and you can see the synergies very quickly, you can build something that can break the level scaling very fast.
Another thing is if you have like
system either. That challenge rating system is not great because
I ignore it.
That's the thing
completely.
This thing's this one's half this, which is it should equate to this much challenge. But then you'll put it in front of a party and it will smash them because it has this particular attack that makes it.
That's what happened with that purple worm. Like it was supposed to be like quite an easy. I think it was the way I was playing it though. Because I understood how it was going to be. I was like, this is a trick.
Lee ate one of us with a purple worm.
I ate 2 of you.
And you
ate 2 of you, and you have to fight your way out.
And you ate one of them. That's what the second.
And that's not a euphemism, by the way.
Yeah. It was like, this is a tremor worm. This does not fight on land.
Yeah.
This comes up, gobbles someone up, and goes back into the little cave. You can't hit me underground unless you come into my little death cave.
You had to jump down into the tunnel, which meant
that was our first battle. It took like 2 hours.
The thing is, though, that kind of enemy is so fun because you have to think outside the box in order to try and beat it.
And these characters were leveled up quite high. So again, when you get to that, 15. It does kind of balance out on the other side because this is when you start getting legendary resistances and things like that. And then, so this, I guess, comes in sort of on the year end where if we're just talking about D&D, like things can get very long.
Yeah.
Things can get encounters can be long anyway. If you get to that point, like that, I think that encounter was like an hour to 2 hours.
It was more than an hour.
You were fighting one thing. It wasn't like an elite monster or anything. It was a strong one, but it was a worm, and it was just quite hard to get out of its gullet once you were in it.
Yeah.
And it took a long time.
I think because of its natural resistances, it was like technically armors that took half physical damage.
Yeah.
So it's very easy for encounters to, what can be a slow system anyway to get even slower at higher levels when you start dealing with higher level enemies just because of innate resistance and stuff. But I think we'll go back to the sort of 3 or 4 months. I think for me, a lot of my campaigns die around that point is fatigue.
Yeah.
Because you've been playing a lot quite quickly, if you've done it quickly. Or opposite is lack of play.
Yeah.
If in 3 or 4 months you've had maybe 3 sessions, people are probably going to just wander away because it's like no one's schedule will ever match up because no one's ever sure what's going to happen again.
Yeah.
And I think that's how a lot of campaigns die.
Yeah. One that I'm in is it just died.
Right.
And that one was really fun, but it was every other Saturday and it fell on bad Saturdays.
Right.
Like where I was away for a wedding, or other people were away doing stuff, or the DM was away doing stuff, or it's Easter Saturday, or da-da-da-da. And it just couldn't work. And it's like, that's...
I think personally, in the new world of D&D and online RPGs, I think you will see a lot more campaigns die around this period because the people who are playing are not close friends. So if scheduling doesn't line up 2 or maybe once or maybe twice, maybe 3 times, after 3 times, if your schedules don't align, most people will walk away.
And just like international factor as well.
Yeah.
Yes, there's that.
Exactly.
Also, I think like after 3 or 4 months, you are starting to get stronger bonds with certain people. Particularly if you're in like a larger group, you'll have someone duck out after 3 or 4 months. And it won't be anything anyone did. It's just someone will be like, I don't really feel like
part of this.
I don't really feel like I'm part of this. I don't feel like I'm being included as much as I could be. Or everyone seems to be friends, and I'm not really as friendly with people. I'm a bit more closed off.
Yeah, you'll have that core group of players that seem to gel together better than the rest do, and they will probably continue a new campaign, not even the one they're playing, it's a new campaign. And everybody else will just sort of fade out because nothing against anyone, just that I'm not as into it as maybe they are. And
that's exactly what's happened with another campaign that I run. Was that someone from Brazil left. And I was like, okay, well.
Which may be sort of because what we're talking about now and the problems that we're bringing up are very different in a physical game than they are in a digital game. So perhaps a lesson learned perhaps here is to run shorter campaigns online. Because if you can, I mean, it's good writing practice anyway to write punchier and shorter and more contained. It's better to get your experience under your belt, things like that. And there's less chance it's all going to fall down. You know, you don't have to always be starting at taking D&D just for example. You know, you don't always have to be starting with level 1 characters. You know, you can start with level 10 or whatever like that. And start there and understand it more. And
I'd often argue that starting later in D&D levels is more fun.
I think so as well. Especially if you're doing a shorter game.
If you're going to do a shorter campaign.
If you're doing a shorter game,
If you're doing like 8 weeks, you know,
I'd start
like that.
For me, I will start most campaigns. Even the fresh campaign I was planning to do for a while, I probably start at level 3. And just have people run level 3 for a little bit longer because I find D&D pre-level 3 dull. Because there's not a lot of variety. It's the same cantrips, the same attacks over because you've not got an archetype yet.
I would say that is very dependent. I'd say that's dependent on how, because you're not below level 3 for that long. You're at level 1 for a session maybe, and level 2 for.
I've played in sessions where they had us run level 1 for 3 sessions. It's not fun.
See, that's a terrible person.
Well, what I said happened was that was because it was an XP system rather than a milestone. So we just didn't, because there was quite a large party and how they decided to dig up XP. No one was garnering particularly much per fight, so no one really leveled up all that quick.
Now, see, you've got to optimize that. If you're a DM.
I think that was the thing for me. It was just that it was like it's taking a very long time for anyone to get enough points to get a level.
Milestone it, guys. Milestone it.
That's my preference.
Milestone it.
I don't know which I prefer, to be honest.
I genuinely find.
I think it's like.
I think it depends on the type of game.
It runs the risk that someone is going to just be a power player. You've got the risk that there's going to be a power player in there. And then all of a sudden they're 2 levels above, and that's it. And it's like all they want to do, which is going to make the DM's life harder because you've got to balance out the encounters or sheet or body or water, and it's gonna demoralize everyone else who is below that person who's the power player. Or I think if you want to use XP, then you're going to probably have to arbitrarily give it to everyone else at other points.
Well, I mean, the thing that you're going to have to do is probably dole out XP to the group rather than to individual players, which would then maybe run the risk of people going like, well, why, you know, why can't I do this and get some more? But generally speaking, I think it's a more organic, and again, I think it depends on the type of game you're running. If you're running like a campaign that goes from like then milestone makes maybe more sense. But if you're doing like a sandbox game, like one of the ones I'm running, then XP makes more sense because it rewards exploration. Because you get the XP, you get a higher level, he's more easily deal with certain stuff down the line.
I think and then it needs to be group rather than individual. And I think a lot of how at least source material is written is that you can get XP for certain actions.
Yeah.
And if people are going to start to cotton onto that, then you're going to start to get power players. And then I think that would be a reason that I would leave.
If what power play?
I would definitely look. I think around sort of this point, maybe even before, I'd say like maybe 6 weeks. Like if there's 6 weeks of power play,
played enough of
it, to a point where someone has power played enough to get a few levels above me, and then more focused on being the strongest character rather than actually what we're doing. I'd be like, I'm out. I'm done. Yeah, I'm really vibe with that. Or I try and like beat them. Which is I'm going to take your XP from you, and then I'm going to be the most powerful player. But then I'd end up not enjoying it and just
and then you'd be in on that play as well, because they would. I think that's very an interesting topic for another video of leveling systems in different games. Because for example, again, frequently other systems use XP very differently. Again, as I spoke about Cypher before, that award
the way Alien does it.
Exactly. They award XP very differently.
How Alchemy does it's very different.
Exactly. Probably close to what Cypher does. We will do a video discussing Alchemy. That will make you work on it. But that could be interesting to sort of talk about that, how different systems handle it, because I find I do think some other people do XP acquisition better than D&D. I think to me that it's telling that a lot of people will do milestone rather than deal with a numbered leveling system, because it flows better for anything with a sort of more beaten narrative, as it were.
I think it's. I mean, the other thing with it is less work.
Yeah,
which is also means it's a bit lazy, but it is less work for the DM to work out. Yeah, I like XP for how organic it is. It can run. You can run the risk of it being quite artificial otherwise if you go milestone. But I mean, it's going to be campaign dependent. It's going to be DM dependent.
Yeah, I think so. And I like your idea of like a sandbox game. Like you've just got sort of like an XP like bounty in areas of that sandbox. You know, if you're going to be trying to hit like a 10,000 XP place from the get-go, that you are going to
get your ass kicked.
You're going to get a TPK.
Yeah.
But then you level up. I think that sounds quite nice, but I'd probably do as a DM if I was running it that way? I would give them the XP and go, tell me who gets what. But they can sort it out.
Interesting. That's a good way to do it, actually.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah. But that's different. Like I said, another topic for another time.
That's worth testing, I think. But let's go out to a year. Let's go out to 1 year, which is where I think probably 90%, particularly definitely of online games, but also probably some face-to-face games as well. That's where they will probably expire at about the year mark.
I would say a lot more will expire before that. I don't think many will make it to. I think a lot less will make it to a year. I
think the year is probably the barrier. I think beyond a year.
Yeah,
you're looking at.
Yeah,
outside
very
of life
few
changing and everything like that. By then, you know the vibe.
Yeah,
the vibe is good.
Yeah, if
you're still here and you're hating the vibe, then
you're a masochist.
Grow a backbone and stop loving pain. And
okay. So how can the vibe change after a year? Because the vibe can change after a year.
Maybe it can, but I think that more comes down to life changing and things like that.
I think outside sources change the vibe.
If we're assuming basically life stays the same, which is quite hard to say that would happen. In a year.
I think that's the key, isn't it? That
right.
A year is a long time.
Yeah.
The longer you go, the more life changes you're opening up, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you get to people around our age, you know. I've got kids. Change is a massive event.
Right, yeah.
People get married, people move, all this sort of stuff. So, and people change jobs, people get promotions. There's a lot that can happen for adults as it were, who play D&D, because it's just the nature of being an adult is things like that can change.
So really, we can't keep it out. So really, but I think that's probably going to be the number one reason why they stop.
Yeah, I think the breakdown of the group.
Too many events have happened, and things need to change, which makes people reassess like what they need to do with their time.
Yeah.
The next is burnout. People have played this story out.
Yeah.
You know, it might not be finished, but they've kind of got to a nice point. And by then, even if, the DM has written more, maybe they want to try something else. Maybe they want to bring in a new story. Maybe the players want to try something new, which they can. They can just kill off the character and make a new one.
Yeah, which I have done.
Yeah.
I would say for me personally, and there's obviously I genuinely think a campaign should not last more than a year if it's telling a single narrative. Because I think after a year, if you have not got to an end point of that campaign, most of your players will be burnt out on that campaign. Because for it to keep it going like that, again, assuming you're playing regularly, so maybe once every couple of weeks.
Assuming you're playing regularly.
You're playing regularly, so you're playing once every couple of weeks, maybe as little as once a month, and you're playing for a prolonged period of time at each session, so 2 hours plus. By a year, if you haven't finished that narrative, it would feel to me as if the narrative is being artificially bloated. There's a lot of intermediary steps that aren't necessary to the story being told. So I think that players would walk away at that point, because they would have told the story of their character that they wanted to tell. That's happened to me.
Or the DM will.
Or the DM would have done. I'm going on the basis that the campaign hasn't finished narratively. The DM hasn't told the story they wanted to tell yet. Because to me, I think if the DM's told the story they want to tell, they have set it up in a way that kind of wraps the campaign up a little bit. Maybe not completely, but it definitely puts a bow on it that people can go, there's a definitive stopping point for this campaign. If you have not had that in a campaign by a year, that tells me that either the DM is dragging it, player action is dragging it, or no one's that invested really and are doing other things, at which point they're all prominent that the campaign at that point is not doing what it should do and probably just needs to stop.
In saying that, I think we've been playing for about a year.
But this is what I knew she was going to cover. What say. Difference for that is that there is a singular narrative in ours that we're telling. With ours is a case by case. It's
more episodic,
It's episodic
to a point.
Yeah, to a point. But what I mean is that we are with the same characters, but because we're doing different types of cases, as it were, it's giving, at least for me personally, I'm still invested in Gracchus and I'm still invested in Cassius because although there is a wider story being told and we're getting to at least Gracchus's narrative arc, because we've been
mine doesn't come much after really.
No,
I think we've got like 2 cases after that.
Yeah, we're in the final 2 cases.
There's a difference. We've been playing about a year and look where we are. We're at a point where my narrative arc is literally going to wrap up in the next case, and then Cassius will wrap up in the case 2 after that. I think if a narrative is going on much more than a year, I think the story is being dragged out artificially, either by DM action or player inaction.
Well, it could be that
people might walk away.
It could be that like there's a big story by design.
Yeah, but I just think that again, this comes out of that whole me of Critical Role. I don't invest in Critical Role because it's like 100+ episodes, and each episode is 4 hours long. So you're talking. I've got 4 I've watched the animated series Vox Machina on Amazon.
I've heard it's good actually.
I enjoy it. It's not perfect, but hey, is that what it is? Yeah, it's the first campaign. It's not all of it. It's the animated. It's the animated series of the first campaign.
There's some anime on here.
Yeah,
I'd love to watch something else.
If anyone's interested if anyone is genuinely interested in Critical Role but cannot be bothered to sit through the whole 400+ hours, like I said, of content, watch it because it hits the story. It hits the necessary story to the campaign.
Gotcha.
And again, it's kind of what was about Critical Role maybe not being the best tool to get into D&D because there was a commercial interest in that campaign being long because that's advertising
and it sets an expectation.
Yeah,
as a DM and as a player, it sets an expectation.
The DM is trying to set up. If a DM is watching that and I can do this, they will come up with this massively elaborate story in their head, but your players might not care. They might not want that. Everyone at that table knows what they're sitting down for because they are effectively being paid to be there. So it's their job.
Yeah.
People are doing this for their enjoyment. I think genuinely only a very close-knit group that have been playing together for a long time will sustain a campaign beyond a year. And that will be because they've either had a lot of campaigns that haven't lasted that long, or they have had a lot of campaigns that have lasted that long. But it will be the same core group of players that are playing every campaign. And it's that keeps it going. For anything else, especially online, I do not see online campaigns running beyond the year. Too much will get in the way, and that group will fundamentally fragment naturally. And if it gets to a year, which I don't think it would, but if it does, I think either the campaign ends because the story is done, or the campaign ends because the players are bored.
Or the DM is bored.
Yeah.
So, another reason why things will stop after a year, I think, is that there have been unresolved issues for a while that keep piling up because they're not resolved. And a year, they just be like either someone will go, nope. That's one place where the DM will nope out, I think.
Yeah.
Do you reckon that's that long into it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that. I agree. I think it depends. I think it depends on the frequency that the issues keep coming up.
Yeah.
If it's
or the reason why they come up.
Yeah, or the reason they come up. If it's a cause that happen constantly, then no, it won't make it to a year. The DM will know about that pretty quick. If it's something that there is one thing that just keeps triggering a player and making them an asshole or getting them annoyed or whatever, I could see it getting longer because it might not come up enough.
I still don't think it's going to be a year.
I could see it. It won't. Don't get wrong. This is by no means the most common reason.
Give me an example, man. Give me an example. You're dead fast on this.
So
fight me on it. Come on.
I'll fight you on it. Okay, so
there's one.
I'll give you two. So one of the campaigns I was in, it ran for a year.
Playing
and
or
people
DMing?
kept. What was that?
Playing or DMing? Are you
playing?
Okay.
It's just playing. So it so players kept kind of coming and going, and new people came in, and people left and came back, and it was a bit chaotic. There was a big divide among the group politically that didn't necessarily get addressed.
Real world politics.
Yes.
Oh,
yeah. So that's sort of
these general bodies of water.
Yes, it is. It is now one of my rules. Because of this.
Keep politics
it's one of my
out
rules.
Role-playing games.
Yes. Get politics off the table completely.
Yeah. Come on. You're here to have fun.
Yeah. But those issues started to back up and up and up.
Okay.
The DM, I think, he wasn't the most confident DM, and I think we threw too many wrenches in his plans without realizing it. I spoke to him afterward. The final thing where things got to a point where we just kind of couldn't anymore was we accidentally, and I think partly he didn't think of a variable that made it torpedo the entire thing that he was about to do. Because we were going to infiltrate a criminal gang who we'd already met. And I was like, well, they know we're guards. So if they know we're guards, they're going to suspect us. So we're going to have to basically not be affiliated with this. So we're going to have to be basically out of the group. We're going to have to be out of the guard in order for it to be plausible that we are now joining them.
Yeah.
And we were supposed to do all of this stuff in the city, but we were kicked out of the city.
Okay.
Because we would be logically. And I suggested that, I think. And everyone else went along with my suggestion. And instead of giving a reason why we had to stay that was maybe logical within the story, he was just like, okay, well, I guess you're leaving. And we left the city, and completely, it made his session, like, I think it was like a kick in the balls for him. Because we went completely away from the criminal gang stuff, and we started doing other things while we were waiting for the contact. And I was like, I had no idea about this until after the game had died. And I talked to him about it, and he was like, "Yeah, you were supposed to do it all in the city." I'm like, "Were we? Oh, well, I had no idea." And at that point as well, I kind of wanted to duck out because my character was becoming useless. Because another person had joined the group who could fly, and they could also like do a lot of healing stuff, and they would take people away. My character was a paladin who is not good unless he's next to other people. Now, I think that's a general thing with paladins. They are not as good as they could be.
Yeah.
If they're in a group, if they're fighting next to a fighter or something like that, they get better.
Yeah,
and they have utility, but if not, no. So basically taking people way away from this melee character and having the fight over here where I can't do anything. And then everyone else took healing, so there was no reason for him to like have it. So I was like, okay, well, you know what I'll do? I'm going to have to retire this character, and I'll come in with a new character. So I did that, which was and people, I think in character maybe was salty at the new character for replacing the old character. And there was a part where we had combat that lasted forever, and it was just like
death by 1,000 cuts.
Death by 1,000 cuts. And I was like, I feel like I'm, and then I was like, I think at this point I don't really want to stay in the game, just because it's either I'm getting really burnt out on the campaign or the character or just D&D in general. I don't know. And someone else, another person in the group, like heard about. I think I told them about this, and they scalped me. They like beat me to the punch, and they said they were leaving, and I was like, So I was like, all right, I guess. And that basically killed the campaign. If I hadn't said anything to her, it wouldn't have killed the campaign. I think.
I think maybe the best way to phrase what was sort of is, like I said, is death by 1,000 cuts. I don't think it's going to be a consistent problem that's going to every time show its head. It's just going to be that a lot of little things have happened throughout the length of the campaign up to that point that it hits that 1 year milestone, and people reassess and go, am I really enjoying it that much? Am I really going to invest more in this? So
the campaign I'm running also is having that issue. One of the campaigns I'm running.
So
where I'm like,
what I mean by saying that a lot of this will happen sooner is because I think there's way more chance of this all happening sooner. So the one with this DM not being as confident and having to basically railroad you through, and like it has to happen here. You know, there are a lot more chances where he's going to get kicked in the nuts because no plan survives first contact with the enemy. Unfortunately, like your players are your enemies of your plan. They are not your enemies. You are playing together. You as a DM, really, you want them to succeed. Really, you want them to succeed. If you're playing it another way, then you have problems. You have a little word with yourself. You do want them to succeed and everyone have a good game, including the DM. Everyone has to have a good time.
You do want the players to succeed. What you don't want the players to do is to screw you over.
Absolutely.
And take every opportunity they can to screw you over. And that is part of why I have gone back and forth on this other campaign that's run for now longer than you. Where
that for me is in one of the previous videos I mentioned about how I tend to do some things. Also for me, narrative beats, how I set them up at least, is I know this has to happen for X to proceed. So in that situation, for me, if you pointed out that, hey, we kind of can't infiltrate if we're all part of the gang, whatever, and you have to wait for this contact, then cool. The contact can happen wherever it
your
needs
next
to happen.
internal question is, how do I then? No, I'm using shoehorn wrong, and I'm using it very cruelly. But how am I going to shoehorn the thing in that needs to?
Yeah, basically,
it's not that.
Instead,
how can I reskin this encounter to make it still push it where I need to go without, but with it coherent with the story, basically.
It's not the issue. That is true, absolutely true, but it's not the issue I'm having. The issue I'm having is they're so chaotic that it's stressful.
Right.
Like I have to be at 120%.
Is this our opposite campaign?
Yes.
I think,
Yeah.
I have to literally
discussion about this campaign.
So here's the thing: I literally have to be at 120% in order to run that campaign. And if I have chronic, like right now, I have chronic back pain.
Yeah.
Work stresses me out, and it's an extra layer of like if I am if there are days when it's bad, I can't run it because I've tried, and even if I'm like at 90%, they will just it'll be like a pylon.
If you look at how the Streets of Mir has gone, because we've basically played parallel alongside this party. There's more in the party, but sometimes we'll check in and see how it's happened, like how they've been going. If you watch the Streets of Mir, it has not happened like that.
No.
The ship one, for example. Now we did throw some wrenches in there. I shot a man with a cannon.
Yep.
You blew up.
I blew up ship.
Now,
that was fucking cool.
In that one, it was cool. Yes,
it worked in the narrative.
Now, indeed, a ship did explode in the other campaign. It was
not in the same
their
way.
Ship. It was their ship. And one of them almost died.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how different a story can be played out by different players. Yeah, I think that's a very interesting thing that you can say. It is so different to how the Streets of Mir has played out.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, the thing with Streets of Mir is there's added layers with Streets of Mir, like timekeeping and making it entertaining, not just for us but for other people. And this one should. I mean, because we've known each other forever.
It does.
This doesn't feel like work at all.
Nah.
It feels like we're just having fun.
We're just having a lovely little chat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We just record. So let's be honest.
I basically played me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I play the character that I generally play in most campaigns as well.
The thing, we'd be doing this kind of thing even if there was no camera.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I said, if we just turn the camera on for a campaign, we would have played anyway.
Yeah.
But that other one feels like work. It feels like
I wonder if at a year campaigns die more because DM burn out than anything in the players. Because I think players will burn out much sooner than DMs.
Yeah. So with your two fight me stories, Matt, I'm gonna still disagree with you on the first one. I reckon that should have died out much quicker. I kind of agree that the first one should have died. I think there was a lot more option. Really, it should have died out much later. At this point, it was flogging a dead horse.
Yeah, it already died.
Everyone was too kind to it. While it can die out, what I'm trying to say with what I was saying there is, yes, everything can die at a year, but there is way more chance for it to die out in 6, 9 months, something like that. There is not this is what happens at a year. Yeah, everything gets there is the chaotic thing. I mean, even too many players coming in and out. You've got to be very logistically sound to make that work. There is a lot of work on the DM to do that.
You've got to bring people up to speed.
You can do it, and I think that would be actually quite fun to do. I think it's something that I would like to see on here at some point. When we in and things like that. I think that would be very fun for us to do. You've heard it here first. We'll probably not give. I'll take the mantle. We'll do it when Alchemy RPG's finished. We'll bring in people, and they can come and they can go. I'm just playing this big fucking world, and it'll be great.
I was going to
And
say,
we'll play for longer than a year, and no one will get burnt out. And everyone will love it.
I would happily want to do that in the Cypher campaign, because if it's a Cypher campaign in the Wild West that I built, that setting is explicitly built to basically be a sandbox.
To do whatever you want.
And just have narrative art stories at key factors of it. So if someone wants to leave, cool. I can then just move you along to the next narrative arc in it and carry on like nothing happens.
So I would disagree with you on the first one, though. I reckon that could have way easily died a death at 6 months, 9 months, or a year. I think probably the last nail in the coffin was the DM just getting destroyed. His plans getting destroyed and being like, fuck, I don't know what to do.
The second
one, yeah, and I think, partly the reason I think it's lasted so long is because that's playtest.
Yeah.
this is playtest working out
what we're doing
for content. And I think that's
part of it.
That's probably the reason that it's lasted so long as well.
An external source is giving you a reason to keep going, even though it's hard work.
So I don't think any of these things are necessarily year issues.
So is the issue then, instead of having the campaign start a year, that you have more, if a campaign makes that far, and you can have what I will type quickly as zombie campaigns, campaigns that are functionally dead, but
still going.
A variety of reasons.
No one's got the
will to kill it,
the balls or the titties
to finish it off.
Whatever you want to go. Look, let's just take it out back and shoot it.
Yeah, if for whatever reason something might be keeping it along.
Because then you've got the sunk cost fallacy.
Yeah,
you know, you put too much money into a shit car. And you shouldn't have by this point you could have bought a new car, but you're always fixing up this car. It's the same thing with a campaign. If you're 9 months in, I've put 9 months into this. I've put 2 hours every week. What's that? 52, 26. What's in between that? 13, 39 times 2. Like that's like 80 hours. It's like 2 full weeks of play. That's like a whole RPG game. That's like the whole storyline of like an RPG on a console sort of thing. Mainline.
No. I was saying that one of my favorites is The Witcher 3, and that main quest line is around 80 hours.
Yeah, that's going through a whole thing like that. You're not going to get towards the end. You're not going to get towards the end of it and be like, I'm not going to finish The Witcher 3.
Yeah. I put 80 hours into this. I need to finish.
So zombie camp, sunk cost fallacy. Just chaotic variables, just getting too much out of control, and life. I think those are really your three.
Yeah. If it's going to die at that time,
that's why
specific thing. And it's really it's too much of one thing. Yeah, it's what you guys are trying to say. I'm just saying they were both zombie campaigns that should have been taken up behind the shed and shot them.
And again, it kind of links back to what I said about the expectation being mistaken because of things like Critical Role, because
they are very long form.
They are 100. They are 100+ episodes, which is over a year's worth of content.
This should be how campaign is.
People are like, well, these guys can do it for 400 hours and go from level 1 to 20 or 18 or whatever they always cap themselves at. Yeah.
The best thing you can do then with those year issues is try your best not to let it get to that point. Address issues as they come up. Keep your campaign. Don't let your campaign outstay its welcome.
Yeah, I would say the key to getting a campaign to go as long as a year is having a plan set for that campaign to go a year, and it not needing to go beyond that, or make it episodic. Effectively, find a mechanical way of introducing variety frequently,
refreshing it quite frequently.
So if you have a single story you want to tell every year, make sure that campaign takes place over a wide area, or if you're going to do it in a more focused setting, that a lot happens in that setting to keep refreshing the location.
And do some learning on writing, A plots and B plots.
Exactly.
We have an A plot. Well, we have two A plots. We have Gracchus' storyline, we have Cassius' storyline.
Which should function both at the same time. They're A and B, because
they do that.
Yeah. And so they are the Gracchus and Cassius, they are the A plot. But then everything else that has come through, like us fighting the old dead one, that's a B plot. All of these
Minervae was a sort of
plots. Those things have been B and C plots. If you want it to last for that long, then don't always play the A plot.
Yeah, you need to have it.
You're gonna need to dip out and do the Thieves Guild quest line, things like.
Mm.
I just recently started playing Oblivion.
Mhm.
I run all of the guilds. I have yet to been. I've just got to Kvatch. I've just got into my first Oblivion game.
Isn't that Oblivion in a nutshell? Though
That's such an Elder Scrolls thing.
You will play all the side content before you ever touch the main quest.
Yeah.
Like I will be the commander of every guild. I've not even been to. Don't even know who Alduin is yet in Skyrim.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think in a weird way that's like that. Video games can teach D&D DMs if you're someone who plays computer games.
What's a B plot?
That's what side quests are. They are B plots. They are variety of like, you know what? I'm bored of this main quest for a bit. I'm gonna go do something else. I'm playing Elden Ring at the moment. I've got to a point in the campaign where I am definitely not strong enough to take on the boss I need to fight next. What other content is there? What other areas have I not been to yet that I can go and play through to do it? And that's what I've done. I've killed as bosses doing that.
So episodic might be a good way to go.
Yeah.
To keep things fresh.
Or write stuff shorter.
Yeah.
You know, that's what I'm going to say.
Don't plot multi-year campaigns.
Well, for people that are running it online, you've got such a larger logistical issue in front of you, and like an operational issue in front of you. There's going to be people in different time zones, people you don't really know that well. So, like, to not have this sunk cost fallacy of even like a couple of months, you know, not even to get to like the 2 to 3 months, 6 months kinds of thing. Write an 8-week campaign.
I would even suggest
really good at that. You know,
I would just, if you want to play the same party and the same characters, you can still do that. You can still run effectively. If you think that all the source books in D&D are short-term campaigns, that are arguably written as jumping off points for a then wider campaign after the fact. Here is your starting point. This gets you to X level. Go and do the rest yourself. There's nothing wrong. You don't have to have some huge grand scheme in your campaign. If you want to play in a specific world setting, there's nothing stopping you from having focused narratives in sections of the world that don't interact with each other, because not everything has to. But if you want to then have a deeper layer, you could have all these different B plots that actually there is an underlying A plot that maybe comes out infrequently, little bits here and there that keep people interested. So it's that episodic thing without it necessarily being specifically episodic, as it were. So you can even do that with every time you start a new 8-week campaign, have a different set of characters. And then when you finally get onto the A campaign, it might be that, hey, you can do this with any one of the characters you've played previously. Because I will just jump you to I will just tell you what level this is going to start at, and we'll just jump you to that level.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare, Carl.
Maybe it is. Well,
yes.
It's an option.
Yeah. Well, I didn't time this, so I don't know how long it's been, but I know it's
long.
But this is over an hour.
So let's wrap up there. So you can. These are all things you can get ahead of, but they are things that could come up. Not all of it is people's fault. It's just things just happen.
Yeah.
But we hope we've given you some food for thought. Now, ladies, gentlemen, and bodies of water, we will wrap up there. Stay tuned for the interview with Matt Arthur. That's going to be a lot of fun.
Big fat whale.
You can find me at Matt Walterhouse Author on Minds.
I still don't know where I am,
and I'm still not there.
Take care, everybody.
See ya.